Question number 4 of the day, and it's a tough one. In the Middle East now, who is winning the image war?
We know the number is more than 1,800 Palestinians dead in these 4 weeks of fighting, dozens of Israeli troops and 3 civilians dead as well. The United Nations school struck right next to that school, which is being used by a shelter, as a shelter, and also with live news cameras, frankly, around all the time, worldwide, and social media, how that is changing all of this. The battle for global perception is really a battlefield of its own. Here's our Jake Tapper.
You're no doubt familiar with advertisements like this one, asking you to sponsor a child in need.
Share with a child today.
The Christian humanitarian organization World Vision has been using campaigns such as these to help impoverished communities for more than 60 years. Donations help provide education, nutrition, and medicine for families around the globe, including in Gaza, where the suffering among children has become unbearable. With Israeli shelling and missiles and Hamas rockets fired and misfired, World Vision was forced to suspend all but its most crucial services here last week.
As the bombs increased, let alone the ground invasion began, safety became a primary concern. One of our staff members in North Gaza lost 8 members of his family during one of the bombing campaigns.
It's gotten so bad that now appeals for assistance aren't primarily aimed at television viewers, but instead at combatants. Please, they say, stop.
Well, we certainly are calling for a ceasefire. Gaza was in a humanitarian crisis prior to this conflict, and now the humanitarian issues are becoming catastrophic.
The Israeli government insists it does not target civilians, but in the past few days, World Vision says it has had to tell at least 5 families that their sponsored child in Gaza was killed, not by hunger or lack of shelter, but by conflict. 5-year-old Sahar recently took part in an event in Gaza where children flew kites carrying messages of peace and hope. World Vision says he was killed by an Israeli missile while playing inside his home. 5-year-old Mohammed had been receiving psychological care from World Vision. The organization says he died when an Israeli tank shell hit his room. 9-year-old Mustafa was killed along with his mother, 8-year-old sister, and 8-month-old baby sister, World Vision says, when an Israeli jet bombed their home. Another sponsored child died in this shelter when it was bombed Wednesday night. World Vision had been set to offer help to families here the next morning.
We have people who are trained experts to work with children to teach them breathing exercises so that they can go to sleep at night when bombs are going off, or to learn how to sing a song that can help calm them down.
The Palestinians blame Israel. Israel blames Hamas for embedding within the population whomever you hold responsible. International aid workers are finding it close to impossible to help any of these children until there's a ceasefire that features people actually ceasing fire.
Heartbreaking to watch no matter what side you're on. I'm joined now by Martha Pease. She is an expert on branding and public relations and global imaging. You know, amazing ideas to bring into a war, but I'll tell my viewers, as a journalist covering this, I've been branded, I've been spun, I've been lambasted by both sides, almost regardless of how you report the issue. How much energy and attention are both sides devoting to their image in this conflict?
Well, I would say that attention is being devoted to the conflict more than to controlling their image. Certainly, Israel's image is taking a big hit here. They're losing ground. They're losing moral high ground, I think, in public opinion. And I think Hamas is actually manipulating and controlling their image to some degree, to a greater extent than Israel is. When 29% of young Americans under the age of 29 or under the age of 30 feel that Israel is to blame for this conflict, and 21% only feel that Hamas is to blame, I think you're looking at a situation where probably image is spinning out of control a little bit for both sides, and Israel's taking the bigger hit.
It's a pretty remarkable thing to discuss, to mention now. We have Israel, it's a democracy, it's an ally of the U.S., and then you have Hamas, it's a terrorist organization. To see that difference of opinion, and as you seem to be saying, that Hamas's brand is rising as a result of this, or at least its public image growing as a result of this, whereas Israel's being damaged.
Right. Well, I don't know if Hamas's image is necessarily rising at a global level. I mean, we're seeing protests in Europe. We're seeing the rise of some pushback, certainly, against Israel. Tesco, a UK supermarket, has taken Israeli produce from the Gaza Strip off the market. But more importantly, what we're seeing is Hamas is really reacting and pushing against this situation using 21st century media tactics. And they're using social media, they're using first-person content, they're using video and wrenching images that are in real time to explain to the world what's going on in the Strip. And Israel really isn't moving into the 21st century in terms of their media tactics. I think they're more concerned with the military conflict. They're more concerned with their impact there. But Hamas is pushing at every opportunity to make sure that the world sees Israel as the aggressor. And I think that's having some effect. Certainly, it doesn't help when Israel's best friend, the U.S., calls their actions disgraceful. On top of what has been kind of progressing over the past few weeks in terms of, a general pressure of opinion against the Israeli action.
Well, it's incredible to think of an organization like Hamas having a social media division, but it's very clear they do. Thanks very much, Martha Pease. And Poppy, I'm sure you get the same thing. Another tactic, I get emails the moment, seconds after I deliver a report from air, often from both sides, saying, oh, you missed this, or you should have said more of that.
Absolutely.
And sometimes this, I'm sure you can understand, even in more vitriolic terms than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't win and you can't make everyone happy. You can just report the facts as they are. And the fact is that the images coming out of Gaza are the images that are coming out of Gaza. Often, as you know, Jim, what we see on the side of Israel is we often see images of the politicians, et cetera, right? I mean, these are the images, and Israel, as was said earlier on Brian Stelter's show, Reliable Sources, so interesting, one expert saying, look, Israel is willing to have these images out there and continue. They are not as concerned with what their perception is in the world. They're concerned with their battle on the ground and in the air. They're fascinating discussion from both of you. Thank you for that. All right, coming up here in the newsroom, what is it going to